After messing around with those annoying dragons, you eventually reach Tower Knight. This enormous opponent, similar to Phalanx, was once a proud Boletarian knight named Alfred, the Knight of the Tower. Before we get into the fight, can we just admire this awesome cutscene? The way Tower Knight stomps and smashes his shield onto the ground, suggesting that it is something players should be worried about. This is brilliant foreshadowing, teaching to the player the boss's moveset and the nature before the fight even begins. The smirky fat official with his boorish gestures and coordinated crossbow snipers that appear on his command, this is well-directed cutscene that made a huge impression on me years ago when I first saw it on YouTube. Before we try to take down this towering knight, we must take care of the crossbowmen first. We must somehow run past the knight and get up on the battlements. There, on each side of the arena, there are soldiers wielding crossbows, just waiting to be killed by the player. This arena is one of the most uniquely designed arenas, not only in Demon's Souls, but in any From Software Souls game. But I won't get ahead of myself in this series. I will only compare these games backwards. That means, if a boss from newer games looks like it was inspired by older title, I'll mention it. If it's the other way around, I won't. So I have to somehow hold back my urge to mention here some weirdly similar boss from the Bloodborne. While you're killing all the snipers, Tower Knight doesn't just passively sit there and wait for you. He has a long ass lance with some cool magic enchantments and he will try to poke you with it. You have to be on your toes, ready to dodge or to cover behind your passivity endangering shield. You've killed all the soldiers. Now the real fight begins. But how are you even supposed to fight this thing? You try to get behind his shield and chop his ankles, but his health bar is barely moving. Yet you hear a satisfying sound effect and some cool particles when you hit his feet. You trust your gaming instincts and continue to harass his stompers. But this isn't all that easy. When you get behind him, Tower Knight will either surprise you with his nimble mobility by jumping back or smash his giant shield onto the ground to push you away. While at the distance, he will use his lance to poke you. He has really long lance, so if you think you're far enough to heal, well, you're not. He can also swing it if the player gets closer, or smash his shield in front of him. Eventually, if you damage his feet enough, he will fall. Now it is your chance to deal some real damage. Target his head and annihilate his health bar. This shouldn't take long, but if you're not quick enough, he will stand up and you'll have to repeat this process again. Alternatively, if you play a ranged character, you can attack his head from the safety of the walls. Just be wary of those poking attacks. When defeated, Tower Knight will drop Iron Demon's Soul and about 8500 souls. You can use his soul to create a warding spell, which boosts your defense. He has way broader moveset compared to previous bosses, which is how it should be in my opinion. Is he a gimmick boss? Well, yes and no. He isn't defenseless blow-up. He doesn't have in-your-face obvious weak spots that so many bosses suffer from. I can tell that he definitely is the reason why so many have fallen in love with From Software games. The only real downside to this boss are those crossbowmen. I definitely feel it would weaken the experience if they weren't any of them. Killing them one time is exciting. It builds up the tension before facing the actual boss, but having to kill them every single time you die, it gets really tedious and repetitive. Tower Knight is very weak to soul arrows and can be taken out with just a few of them, so keep that in mind if you're into sorcery. In fact, almost every boss in this game is weak to magic, so basic tip for almost every boss would be use magic. His human form, Knight Alfred, can be encountered later in the Boletaria Palace as a black phantom. Just like his demon form, he wields a large tower shield and a pointy spear. Thanks for watching, see you tomorrow.